All right, so today we are going to talk about defamation, right? What does it mean? Because a lot of us here online, we are just saying anything and anyhow. But before we get to defamation, we should understand the fact that the 1992 Constitution of Ghana, it guarantees something called freedom of speech and freedom of expression, specifically in the Constitution at Chapter 5, Article 21. So it guarantees freedom of speech and freedom of expression. What this means is that you and I can speak freely without fear of anybody. And when I say anybody, I mean anybody in its absolute sense, not the government, not an individual, and not any group. However, the Constitution also recognizes the fact that people have their fundamental human right to dignity, respect, and every other thing. So therefore, the Constitution has to protect the rights of others. Therefore, to prevent you and I from saying things that will trample or infringe upon the rights of others, the Constitution also guarantees the fact that their rights should be protected, and for that matter, laws on defamation has to come into play to prevent you and I from defaming others or from speaking against the personality and reputation of others. So what is defamation? Defamation refers to anything you or I do that has the tendency of lowering the reputation or lowering the personality of an individual in the estimation of right thinking members of society. It means that when you say something or when you do something which has the tendency of making other people look down on another person or prevent other people from patronizing another person in his or her work or occupation, it can amount to defamation, right? But before something can be called defamatory or can qualify as defamation, there are four elements that has to be met. One element is the element of falsity, meaning whatever you say against that person should be false. If it is true, then it is not defamatory. Even if it is insulting but true, cannot function as defamatory. So, for example, if I call you a thief, if it is pronounced by court, a court of competence jurisdiction, that you are a thief, if I call you a thief, it doesn't qualify as defamation. But if I call you a thief, a lunatic, and the court does not accept that, then that becomes what? That becomes a problem. The second element has to do with what? Publication. If you and I are sitting and I just refer to you as a thief, there is no third person, then that is not defamation. But if I come online and I make a video about it, then I call you a lunatic, I call you a killer or a murderer or whatever I call you, whether I posted it on Facebook, TikTok, wherever I posted it, there is a publication to a third party. Somebody has gotten involved. That becomes defamatory. And the third element is what? Damage. It has to damage your reputation. You should be somebody of social standing. You should have some amount of respect, right? So in case I make that statement about you, those people that have seen it, who know you, should be able to say, Kai, no, this person has lost my respect. This person is going to be fired from my business in these kind of things. Therefore, that is what damage, it is causing damage to you. The last thing has to do with identification. Whatever I do, if it does not identify you, the person, it is not defamatory. So I can make a statement, and if that statement, where I am making that statement, people will get to know you, then that is defamatory. But if they don't know you, it is not defamatory. And if I publish something and nobody knows who it's about, who is defamed? Nobody is defamed, right? But if they identify you, even if it is not in your presence, and even if it is an implied identification, that is defamatory. However, for it to qualify as defamatory, it should be measured with the right thinking members of society. What is the meaning of right thinking members of society or reasonable people? When the law says right thinking members of society, it is not referring to people who are overly naive or overly suspicious. It is referring to people who are in the middle, right? People who probe issues. If I say he is a thief, he will need to ask me questions. What do you mean by he's a thief? How is he a thief? When did he steal? These are recognized by the law as right thinking members of society. Thank you very much.